Your worth isn't theirs to decide. It's yours to protect. Have you ever let a single comment from someone, just a quick, careless remark, keep you awake all night? Maybe it was a judgmental stare, a dismissive tone, or a passive-aggressive, just being honest moment that left you questioning yourself. Not because what they said was objectively true, but because some part of you believed it might be. And that's the twist most people miss. It's not their words that break you. It's your permission. No one can make you feel small, unless you hand them the power to do it. Chapter 1. They only have power if you give it to them. Ever had this happen? Someone walks past you and throws a little jab about your looks, your job, your life choices. And suddenly everything you've worked to build inside, your confidence, your self-worth, starts to crumble like sand in the wind. They didn't scream. They didn't insult you in front of a crowd. All it took was a shrug, a smirk, or a sentence too casual to be taken seriously. But you took it seriously. You took it personally. Here's the strange truth. They didn't really hurt you. You allowed it to hurt. Sounds harsh, right? Like blaming the victim. But this isn't about blame. It's about taking your power back. The power you were born with but may have slowly handed out to everyone around you. Because again, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. This world isn't short on people ready to criticize you. Your tough boss who never acknowledges your effort. That aunt who keeps comparing you to your cousin who just got promoted again. Old classmates who still see you through the lens of who you were at 17. Or total strangers on the internet tossing out unsolicited opinions like they know your story. But here's the thing, all they did was speak. What you feel is a decision. A split-second choice between believing the noise or standing rooted in your truth. You see, feelings don't come directly from what people say. They come from what we make those words mean. Someone tells you you're not that good. It only stings if deep down you already kind of believe it. It's like someone throwing an arrow. It only lands if you step forward and hold your chest out. Now, I'm not saying you should walk through life emotionless or cold. This isn't about shutting down. It's about emotional freedom, the kind that comes when you stop outsourcing your peace of mind. When you stop letting a comment decide if you deserve to be loved. Because if you let people define your value, they will always lowball it. Not because you're not worthy, but because they can't see all that you are. And honestly, they don't need to. You don't need their permission to believe you matter. You don't need their approval to be proud of your journey. I knew a woman once, let's call her Diane, whose ex-husband told her, flat out, "You're nothing special. Without me, you're nobody." Harsh, right? But Diane didn't collapse. She looked him in the eye and said, "You're allowed to think that. But I don't have to believe it." Years later, she was running a small business, raising 3 kids on her own, not to prove him wrong, but because she already knew her worth, with or without applause. And you can do that too. Anytime you decide to. Think of it this way. If you were a diamond and someone looked at you and said, "Just a rock," would that change your value? Of course not. It would only show how little they know about diamonds. You can't be mad at someone for being blind to your light. But you can stop handing them the mirror you judge yourself in. Because if you keep letting people tell you what you are, you'll start to believe it. You don't need a nod from the world to begin loving yourself. All you need is one quiet moment to say, "I'm enough. I'm growing. And I won't measure my worth by someone else's opinion." The best part? You don't need anyone to give you that power. You just have to stop giving it away. And if today you've ever felt dismissed or looked down on, remember this. They can speak. They can judge. They can laugh. But they only have the power to wound you if you let them. Chapter 2. The voice that hurts you the most? It's not theirs, it's yours. Here's something most people don't want to admit. Not all the words that hurt you come from other people. In fact, many of the most painful ones, you say them to yourself. We're quick to blame others for making us feel small. But if you really pay attention, you'll realize the loudest critic in your life often sounds exactly like you. It doesn't yell. It whispers. It shows up when you're about to apply for that job you secretly want. When you try on that outfit you like but think is too bold. When you want to raise your hand and speak, but end up staying silent. Says things like, "Who do you think you are? No one wants to hear from you. You're not special. Just play it safe." Sound familiar? And here's the hardest part to swallow. You don't need anyone else to say those things anymore. You've memorized them. You repeat them daily. But here's the truth. Those thoughts aren't original. They're leftovers. Hand-me-downs from old conversations, careless comments, or childhood moments that stuck when they shouldn't have. Maybe it was something a teacher said in 3rd grade. Maybe your mom always compared you to your more talented cousin. Maybe a bully laughed at your voice once, and now you second-guess every word. Whatever it was, you didn't leave it in the past. You packed it, carried it, started to believe it was part of you. But it's not. It never was. A 6-year-old doesn't look in the mirror and think, "My nose is too big." Kids don't compare their values. They just exist free, open, full of joy, until the world steps in and teaches them one subtle jab at a time that they are not enough. And from that point on, most of us don't even need bullies. We become our own. I once heard a quote that hit me like a freight train. Other people's criticism may be the spark, but we're the ones pouring gasoline on the fire. And the good news is you can stop anytime. Not easily. Not overnight. But you can. Imagine this. You're walking through life carrying a backpack. Inside are hundreds of little sticky notes. Each one has a negative message you picked up over the years. You're not smart enough. You're too loud. You'll never succeed. You're hard to love. The longer you carry them, the heavier they feel. But you don't throw them out. Why? Because part of you believes that without them you'll have nothing left. Like they've somehow become your truth. But they haven't. They're just clutter. And it's time to unpack. Start asking yourself, is this voice in my head telling the truth? Where did it come from? Does it even belong to me? Because self-doubt? It's not a personality trait. It's a habit. A mental reflex that can be unlearned. I once met a guy named Ryan, super talented, kind, hardworking. But every time someone complimented him, he'd deflect with a nervous laugh and say, just lucky, I guess. Eventually I asked him why. He told me, "My mom used to say, don't get cocky. There's always someone better than you." She probably meant well. But those words stuck. So much so that as an adult, any form of praise made him uncomfortable. He'd built a mental gatekeeper that blocked every bit of recognition, just to stay humble. But what it really did was to keep him small. You see, that inner critic isn't based on your present. It's an echo from your past. And if you don't confront it, it will keep running your life, even when no one's around to say a word. Here's something powerful to remember. The voice in your head that tells you you're not enough. It's not telling the truth. It's just telling the same story, over and over. And you're allowed to change the story. Next time you catch yourself thinking, "I'm not good enough," pause and ask, is there actual proof of that? Or is this just an old scar trying to speak again? You don't have to shout, "I'm amazing," in the mirror every morning. But what if you just stopped being cruel to yourself? What if you spoke to yourself the way you would to your best friend when they're hurting? You wouldn't say, "You're a failure." You'd say, "You're learning. You're growing. You're doing your best." So why not say the same to yourself? Start small. When you look in the mirror, don't attack your reflection. When you make a mistake, don't call yourself worthless. When you're scared, don't say, "I'm weak." Say, "I'm becoming braver." You're not broken. You're not behind. You're just someone who's been listening to the wrong voice for too long. And you're allowed to turn the volume down. You're allowed to rewrite the script. You can't stop the world from judging you, but you can stop judging yourself so harshly. You are the one living inside your own mind 24/7. So why not make it a kinder place to be? Because once you start treating yourself like someone worth protecting, that old feeling of not enough won't stand a chance. Chapter 3. Self-awareness is power, and you get to choose your response. Let's imagine a simple moment. You're walking through a quiet park, and a little kid runs up to you, points and says, "You look like a dinosaur." Would you get offended? Angry? Probably not. You'd likely laugh and move on. Why? Because you know that child doesn't have the experience or understanding to truly judge you. Now flip the scene. An adult dressed professionally with a serious face says the exact same thing. Suddenly it hits differently. Same words. Same situation. But your reaction? Way stronger. Why? Because we assume that grown-ups should know better. So when they speak, we give their words power. We believe them. And that's the truth no one teaches us. It's not the words that hurt. It's how much power we give the person saying them. If someone you admire says, "You're not cut out for this," it might wreck you. But if a stranger on the internet says it, you brush it off. That's not about them. That's about your internal filter, what you believe, who you trust, and how much weight you assign to outside opinions. And here's the good news. That filter? You control it. That's what self-awareness really is. It's not about being perfect. It's about pressing pause and asking, why am I feeling this way right now? Where is this emotion coming from? Is it really about them? Or something deeper inside me? Because here's the real superpower. You are not your emotions. You are the person observing them. And if you can observe a feeling, you can choose what to do with it. That's where freedom lives. Most of us live in reactive mode. Someone criticizes us, we get defensive. Someone ignores us, we feel rejected. Someone doubts us, we shut down. But those reactions, they're habits, reflexes, not destiny. You can switch to intentional mode. And it starts with this one truth. You don't have to react just because you feel something. You can pause, breathe, decide. I once heard a story about a woman named Laura. She's a schoolteacher, soft-spoken and thoughtful. One afternoon, a parent barged into the classroom and said, loud enough for others to hear, "You're not teaching my kid anything useful. You don't belong in a classroom." Now, a few years earlier, Laura would have gone home and cried. She would have stayed up questioning her worth, replaying every word. But this time, she simply took a breath, looked the parent in the eye, and said, "Thanks for your feedback. I know my value, and I also know not everyone sees it. That's okay." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't defend herself endlessly. She didn't crumble. She simply chose not to hand over her peace. That's what real strength looks like. Not proving people wrong. Not shutting them down. Just choosing not to let their opinions drive your day. Because here's the thing. You can't control what people say, but you can control what you make it mean. Example. Someone says, "You don't have what it takes to lead." You can interpret that as, "I'm not good enough," or as, "They haven't seen the full picture of who I am yet." Same words, same moment, two completely different lives. And this doesn't just apply to criticism. It applies to rejection, misunderstanding, failure. Everything. You always have a choice. Not in what happens, but in how you frame it and how you respond. You don't have to keep playing the same mental loop. You don't have to react to old habits. You can stop mid-thought and ask, is this response helping me? What would happen if I reacted differently? That's the beginning of emotional freedom. Because real freedom isn't about never being hurt. It's about knowing you might be hurt and choosing not to let that pain define you. And once you learn to look inward before reacting outward, everything changes. You'll walk into the world without a shield, but with something even better. A grounded calmness no one can shake. Not because you're numb. Not because you're above it all, but because you finally understand. Your feelings are real, but they're not always right. You might feel unworthy and still show up like someone who knows their worth. You might feel judged and still walk forward with confidence. You might feel misunderstood and still refuse to shrink. That's power. And it starts the moment you realize you get to choose what comes next. Chapter 4. Self-respect isn't arrogance, it's a quiet kind of power. Somewhere along the way, many of us picked up a dangerous belief that if you say, "I deserve better," people will call you arrogant. If you set boundaries, they'll say you're cold. If you walk away from something that hurts you, they'll label you as difficult. So we learn to play small. We apologize when we've done nothing wrong. We smile when we're uncomfortable. We laugh off disrespect just to avoid tension. And inside we repeat the same message. Don't make a scene. Don't be too much. Don't show that it hurt. But here's the truth no one tells you. Staying quiet doesn't earn you more respect. It just trains people to believe they can treat you however they want, and you'll stay. See, self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't show up with fireworks or declarations. It's not about proving anything or needing validation. Self-respect is silent, steady, rooted. It's the way you sit calmly in chaos, knowing exactly who you are. It's not about being flashy. It's about being unshakable. Some people confuse self-respect with ego. They think it means walking around with a chip on your shoulder, refusing to back down, never admitting you're wrong. But that's not self-respect. That's insecurity in disguise. True self-respect isn't about being better than anyone. It's about no longer needing to be validated by anyone. People who truly respect themselves don't demand attention. They command it simply by how they carry themselves. I once met a man named Robert. He'd worked as a bus driver for over 30 years. Didn't wear a suit. Didn't talk himself up. But whenever he walked into the local diner, people stood a little straighter. They greeted him warmly. They listened when he spoke. Not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because he respected himself and it taught others how to treat him. That's quiet power. That's the strength of knowing your worth, without shouting it from the rooftops. Self-respect doesn't need an audience. It shows up in the choices you make when no one's watching. It's choosing not to chase after someone who keeps letting you down. It's walking away from a conversation that's going nowhere. It's declining an invitation when your body and mind need rest, and not feeling guilty about it. It's saying, "This isn't okay," even when your voice shakes. You don't have to prove your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You just have to remember it, especially when the world tries to make you forget. And if someone misunderstands your boundaries as arrogance, let them. You don't owe everyone access to you. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your life. Because here's the truth. Self-respect isn't pride. It's protection. It's the armor you wear that no one sees. Not to shut people out, but to stop shrinking yourself for people who refuse to grow. And once you start living like you believe you matter, something incredible happens. People speak to you differently. Your time becomes more valuable. Your relationships get clearer. Not because you've changed them, but because you've changed the standard. And the most beautiful part? You never had to raise your voice. You just had to raise your level of self-belief. So no, you don't need to declare, "I'm worthy." Just live like you know it. In how you walk, how you rest, how you love yourself through hard days, how you stop explaining yourself to people who are determined not to understand. Because when you move through life with quiet self-respect, you teach the world how to treat you without saying a word. Let this be your reminder. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be validated. You just need to stop giving away your worth in exchange for being liked. Because you were worthy long before anyone noticed. And you'll still be worthy long after they forget. So if you've made it this far, if you've walked with me from that first moment of self-doubt to this quiet, rooted sense of strength, then know this: you don't need to fight for your value. You just need to stop surrendering it. No one can make you feel small unless you give them permission. And starting today, you don't have to say yes to that anymore.